I'm TitanOnFire, and welcome back to more replays from ASUS ROG 2021. Again, an amazing tournament. We've seen a ton of great series from it, both that were streamed live and that we have gotten the replays from here on the AlphaX YouTube channel, and it's an absolute joy to me that I get to bring you this next one, because it's two of my favorite players, personally. As in the top right of the map, it's going to be your red Terran from Team NV. It is Maru. And in the bottom left is your blue Terran from Team Liquid, Clem. Oh, I'm so excited. These two are some of my favorite Terrans personally to watch play, just in general. Just the game of StarCraft 2 I enjoy so much when I'm seeing these two players go at it, no matter what the matchup really is. And we are, of course, going into a TVT. This was from the group stages, which was done in GSL style. So you had, I believe it was 4 groups of 4, where then the top 2 from each group went on as the first and second seed. Actually, first and second seed didn't even really matter, but went on then into the round of 8. And yeah, this is the big one. It's Maru versus Clem. It's gonna be so exciting. I mean, Maru has been in good shape recently. I wouldn't say he's had any outstanding results, tournaments-wise, and like really decent runs, but he has been putting up some really awesome games, and he's kind of been getting back into form. He's still consistently, getting into round of 8s, round of 16s. That's not an issue, but it's just we haven't seen as many of those high place finishes that you would usually expect out of Maru. And so, when you're looking at him in a TVT versus Clem, you look at this and you kind of think, hey, Clem does probably have a pretty good chance here. Now, if you're looking at it just as the matchup of TVT, I gotta give Maru the edge, because Maru's TVT, I think, aside from when TY was still playing, before he went to the military, has been the best TVT in the world. Hands down, I think Maru has the best TVT in the world. There is not really any other player that is able to keep up with Maru's decision making, the way that he macros these games, and just his transitions always being on point. He really has mastered this matchup, and in the past you've seen players like Cure who have been able to get the kind of the upper hand over him, but that's kind of fallen away. I think Maru has refined this matchup down to a point where he's no longer losing to to the more aggressive builds and attacks that come out from players like that. And he can hold on, he can defend, just seemingly take so many blows that would usually put any other player behind and still come out on top. And as for Clem, I mean, he's Clem. We all know Clem. One of those players that almost revolutionized Terran once again, at least in the European scene, for how successful he was able to be with just his micro potential, with the things that he was doing with his units. And in TVT especially, being able to control, a lot of units at once is very important. You're gonna have a lot of spellcasters. You have a lot of things to do. It's splitting, it's stimming, sieging tanks, using your ravens, focus firing. All those things come down into engagements, and so, I mean, it's a really exciting matchup. I'm very, very excited to see how this goes. But off the start on the bat of this game, there really hasn't been too much that's been going on. Our first push will finally come out from Maru. Has a few more Hellions and Reapers here. Actually went up to 5. Which is not usually what you see. You'll see, occasionally a Terran might add on a 4th Reaper and a 3rd Hellion. But Maru here actually went even further. He's actually going to get quite a few workers. 4 SCVs going down, looking for the Mule. Doesn't quite get the kill. And Clem manages to hold on. Has his Cyclone out a little bit earlier and cleans it up. 4 workers. It's decent enough damage here for Maru. And especially this early in the game, you like to see that damage coming through. It just gives him that slight little edge. That slight little lead this early in the game. And yeah, as I said, that's a really interesting opening. 5 Reapers, I think, did have probably the reactor onto the barracks and pumped out 2 additional Reapers, had another Hellion with it. Allows her to dive in there, and it really hasn't slowed down Maru at all on the macro front either. Is getting into his tanks at a very, very reasonable time. In fact, is actually ahead of Clem, who is still adding on Hellions. And so Maru is going to have a pretty large advantage here already in that tank count. Has one, adding on a second. Clem, I mean, I assume here is probably going to go for, I mean, I would say some sort of an elevator play into the main. But no, actually, Clem has gone for double starport. This is a very interesting build here from Clem. Is foregoing tanks, has 2 Ravens being produced at a time. I mean, this has to be preparing for some sort of an aggressive attack, I'd imagine, because getting this many Ravens out early, they're not going to really have much value if you just sit back on them, because it's such a heavy gas investment that you can see already that CC for Clem is going to be significantly delayed compared to that of Maru. And yeah, I think Clem's going to be preparing to move out. He's going to have a single tank with this push. It's going to be 4 Ravens. Is that 5 Ravens? No, okay, just the 4, but I mean, Maru scans here, and he says, all right, everything looks normal. Tank is being produced, Raven is coming out. Hasn't switched over to start his stim yet, and that's a little bit strange, but it's nothing that's really gonna, clue Maru into anything being out of the ordinary. It just looks like, oh, Clem's adding on more Ravens. Like, he's just he wants more Ravens. And that's absolutely perfectly viable. This is a really interesting build coming out from Clem. And when it comes down to actually pushing with this, of course, having the interference matrices is going to be so useful, especially for trying to push down that third base, which Maru is looking to establish as his natural is saturated. But both players adding on barracks at the same time. Another scan goes out. Maru really trying to figure out what's going on, and he has no clue as to this push that's coming out from Clem. Here we go. It's just the Hellions pushing on in, clearing out the vision. But here's the rest of the push. It's 4 Ravens. They have so much energy. I mean, alone, the interference matrices here on the Ravens is just going to be so many. It's 5th joining. I don't know if Maru can hold this. I really don't know if Maru can hold this. It's only 1 tank for Clem, but this is still a very strong push here. And there's the 6th Raven joining. Here we go. 2 interference matrices go out already onto the Ravens of Clem. Turrets going down, tank is sieging up, but wait, Maru still has tanks alive. He's going to be able to siege away and clear up a lot of the Hellions. 14 SCVs go down. And that's the damage that you really want if you're Clem. Great interference matrices coming out from Maru. Gets those 2 tanks disabled. He's going to be able to fly on in with the Vikings, drop them down. And despite the fact that, Clem still has his 5 Ravens, 6 Ravens in the sky, the push is held back. 15 workers go down in total by the end of it. And it just felt a little bit disjointed there for Clem. Of course, you can understand wanting to throw down the auto turrets. Interference matrix on the Ravens means that Maru can't stop the tanks from sieging from Clem. But I almost feel like it would have been more useful to just disable those tanks right away. Needless to say, Clem gets damage done though. Has Stim on the way, is working on his NG bays, getting additional barracks. He is working on the tools that he needs to now catch back up to the tech of Maru, who already has his +1/+1 almost finished. And that's a big advantage here for Maru. Again, superior tank count right now, sitting 5-2. It's 6 Ravens to 1 though. And when you have 6 Ravens, you can kind of negate the advantage that tank count gives Maru, just because the Raven interference matrix can shut down most of those tanks. Clem has a Raven for each tank. It is gonna be so hard for Maru to find an opening to push Clem and to kind of take advantage of this upgrade lead that he has. I just don't really see Maru getting much done here with this push, and he's just gonna back on up. Stim comes down from Clem, who's trying to fly on in. Auto turrets go down. The chase is coming through. 1 tank gonna go down from Maru. And Clem, has he found the opportunity to dive? Marines trying to stim to cover as the tanks siege. Clem actually has the air advantage. Gets 2 more tanks. And yeah, it was an overstep there from Maru. Just couldn't challenge the air superiority of Clem, who behind this, he still has 2 starports. Clem can now, double pump Vikings if he wants. He can swap that off. He's working on Liberators. Clem is getting a very strong army that Maru, Maru can't really challenge. He has, he has a decent Marine count, but it's not enough. to push this down. You even see with this dance here, you know, outside of Clem's natural, just Maru's not able to gain any ground. Now, the one advantage Maru does have is the timing on his expansions, and as we said before, it's the upgrades. You have 2-2 already started, and +1 weapon attacks on the way for Maru. His units will be stronger over time if he's allowed to get them finished, but for now, it is Clem who just, again, has this really powerful army. His Raven count has been knocked down to 2, but still, the air superiority, 4 Vikings to 3, with 2 Liberators added on. You know, Clem can start to harass with these, he can push out, he can just get damage done. Ooh, Maru. Loading up a double drop, is going to try and see if he can find this one into the natural. There's already a missile turret there, and, well, dissuades Maru from dropping on in, and now Clem also has a counterattack that's been prepared. Both these players just, they're just so on top of these, just on noticing these small little things and moving their units to reposition them. As both players double pumping tanks at the moment. Maru has his 4th base established, has already started mining off that, but here comes the Liberator, gets an SCV kill, Maru pulls away. And Vikings should be sent to respond to that, as Maru says, I have enough here to clean up this small little force, and it does look like he just has a slight advantage, but Clem, who actually shoots his own Raven there. But both these players microing 2 armies on either side of the map. Maru, he's going to stim on in with a small group of Marines. Where's the response from Clem? I mean, it's a small group of Marines for Clem as well, and they don't have 2 medevacs. Already going to start to kill away some of these workers, and I mean, this is what Maru needs to do. He is ahead in workers. He has that macro advantage. He just needs to try and get more damage, and 7 SCVs is a great way to start that. Looking to focus fire down an 8th. Can't quite do so. Does get the 8th, though. Looked like he wouldn't for a second, but retargets that last Marine, gets 8 workers, it knocks Clem back down, stops Clem, bigger even, stops Clem from mining off that 4th base, while Maru has finished up his upgrades. Maru is now getting into the air army, 2 tech labs on the way, gonna probably be added onto those starports, and then the Viking production coming through as well. Maru is preparing to try and get into this late game army, and let's get some nice shots off there. Loses a tank, but kills quite a few Marines. But here comes Clem's 2-2. And that upgrade advantage that Maru had, it's not really too useful anymore, because Clem has caught up. And again, it is Clem with the slightly larger air army. It's, you know, 9 Vikings to 6 in favor of Maru, but those 3 Ravens, just so useful. And Maru being active with these small groups of Marines, but is he going to be ready for the push from Clem? I don't know. The 3 Ravens immediately disable all of the tanks that are here on the defense for Maru, and Clem just might be able to find, I mean, some critical damage here. All those SCVs are going to get so low. The tanks are going to push up. Sure, Maru has more Vikings in the air, but it just might not matter. There's so much here from Clem. Oh, the SCVs get pulled in the scan. 14 of them go down. Maru's trying to drop on the other side and focus down some of the add-ons, but there is an army here to respond, an interference matrix onto one of the medevacs, and Maru has lost his 3rd base. It has been dislodged. The workers have been killed. Clem, I mean, just finds the move in order to get the damage done, and now what can Maru do? I mean, his army is separated on either side of this. He's down army supply and now workers as well. It just feels like Clem has all the cards in his hand. That being said, Unsiege comes out. It's pretty dangerous. Is sieging back up, but Maru, creeping forward, is just trying to poke around, trying to see if there's any way to break this contain that Clem has. It's just, I don't know if he can. I mean, Maru right now, it's completely even on upgrades. He doesn't even have a tank upgrade as Clem. I think, did he just kill one of his own tanks? That's a decision. As a tank goes down for Clem, just a bit of misfire. Maru inching his tanks forward, just trying to find a position. Clem's stimming in here. Clem's trying to dislodge this position. He's gonna lose a lot of Marines and doesn't even clean up the tanks out from Maru. Interference matrix comes down, but it's so late. Missile turret as well, gonna try and finish off this tank. They will be able to do so, even maybe get the 2nd. Oh, the Marine drop just comes through from the side. 3 tanks immediately go down. Maru's stimming in. There's still a massive tank line, but is it gonna matter? Maru's going for it. He says, this is my time to pounce. Clem was out of position, and Maru strikes. 20 army supply now in the lead. Has +2 for his tanks, so now his tanks in siege mode will be one-shotting those of Clem. And Maru has more in the air. The Viking lead hasn't actually been, trimmed down at all. Maru has been allowed to just continue to build it, is now sitting 7 Vikings to 2, has equal Ravens, and he has the Liberator. He's gonna start firing at these tanks from Clem. Clem tries to step forward with his Marines, will get the Liberator. But Maru, man, that Marine drop, you couldn't even see it if you were Clem. You were focusing on the other side of that fight. Comes through, cleans up 3 tanks, and now he's in the pushing position. He's gonna start to siege down this 5th base from Clem. And of course, the game is not over from this position because Clem still has a good amount of units. Both these players double pumping the Ravens. It's gonna be hard for Maru to try and find, much more damage than this 4th base, or this 5th base. And actually, it wasn't even the 5th base. I think this was the 6th because Clem has another mining base at the 9 o'clock position. But just such a sick move there from Maru. Evens out the supply, and I think Maru's going to even be taking a upgrade lead. He's working on his +3 ground attacks alongside the +2 for his tanks. He has that 1 shot on Clem's Marines. Clem doesn't have the same. Clem's tanks still take 2 shots to kill the Marines of Maru, and that's a pretty big deal when it comes to late game engagements in TVT. It just means that it's going to be so much harder for Clem to try and, stop Maru, especially from diving. One of the reasons why +2 and so is important in the late game TVT is just because if, as we saw, when Maru tries to dislodge a position, Clem's tanks, even though they're siege, they don't immediately kill the Marines. It takes 2 shots. That's why Maru's able to push through. If Clem had that +2, it might have been a whole different story. And he still doesn't even have it. The upgrade hasn't started, but there's money in the bank for Clem. We're playing this kind of tiptoe game of positioning. Where are you going to strike next? And Maru's getting ready for a push. Just look at this army from Maru. It's 13 tanks to 12. Both these players just have so much. 6 Ravens apiece, but more Vikings are on the map for Maru, and this is the style that he plays, is just air superiority. Clem had it in the early game, but Maru does not slack when it comes to late game air dominance for Terran. He is always ready to get a good amount of Ravens, and ooh, I love this. Snipes off 2 more tanks. Might even focus down the Raven. That is so much value for just this small group of Marines. But as I was saying, Maru just making sure that he has enough to control the air. Now, it doesn't actually have... Okay, it does have Corvid Reactor. I was going to say, it would be strange if he didn't have that just yet. But finally, Clem is starting on his +3 and his +2 weapon attacks. But it's going to be a little while till those are finished up. And Maru is preparing for a push. Interference Matrix go down. All of the tanks are disabled. Auto turrets go down from Clem. But the Dorito dust onto the Marines. Maru's just pushing it. And he cleans up all the Marines. He's going to keep pushing down onto the tanks. Clem is going to lose so much in this fight. But Clem's pushing on the other side. He says, all right, you want to trade a base? I will trade a base. And Maru, he's going to have to pull back. He can't do a base race here. It is not favorable for him. Interference matrices go down. Clem is going to be able to kill off the 5th base of Maru. And that's going to be a lot of SCVs going down with it as well. Oh, the SCV pull once again. So many going down. And I think Clem might have made the right move here because he has a base on the other side that's still mining. He has a 6th base that had already gone up. He only loses 13 workers. He still has the advantage there. And he just pulls back. Clem finds a great trade out of nowhere. This game is still just going back and forth. And those upgrades coming through for Clem are so big. If he can get those up and really, get into a comfortable position while having equal upgrades to Maru, it will make just such a difference for these late game engagements. It's so many Ravens. Clem did lose a few, as we mentioned, kind of to the Marine run-by and in the engagement there. Does mean that Maru has the advantage once again. And just that air superiority is such an important factor. Here we go, Maru. Gonna be able to set up. He's gonna try and kill off the 6th base once again, and I don't know if there's much that Clem can do to stop this, and this is a really important base. Without this, it's now suddenly equal. As Maru, he's gonna stim in. That's 3 more tanks, but auto turrets do dissuade the Marines from diving on in. Oh, Clem, I love this little drop. Just runs some Marines across. 13 more workers go down. Maru's 5th is lifted off. Maru's not mining a lot now. Neither of these players on a comfortable economy. Clem gets a tank. Oh. But Clem sneaks out and kind of Ninja 6 base. No way for, Maru didn't check for it. And that could be huge because that's so much more mining that's gonna be able to come through for Clem while Maru is reestablishing his bases. And still, even then, it's 43 workers for Maru. He has a large army, but that's about it. That is what he's working with. He's gonna try and, dislodge another base here from Clem. He's gonna start to siege up. He's gonna create a siege line. And he says, this is where I want to fight. I know that I've taken a lot of damage, but interference matrices go down. All of the tanks are almost interference matrix. 3 are still alive, but they also get disabled. Auto turrets are going down for Clem, but Marines aren't fighting. The tanks are on their own. Maru is sieging forward. I don't think Clem was in the right position. He loses so many tanks. He's able to get rid of a lot of the Marines from Maru. Still has 2 tanks. But there's so many more siege tanks for Maru. He's pushing them forward. This is a base that, Clem, it's really important. Clem's just gonna dive for it. He's gonna go on in. All the Ravens just fly over Marines. They get completely eliminated. Siege tanks firing. Clem dips in supply. Maru takes a decisive fight. And that's GG for game 1. And welcome to Lightshade for map number 2. An absolutely crazy game 1. I'm still giddy over just everything we saw there. It makes my Terran heart just so happy when we get to see stuff like that, and I'll talk about it more. But first, in the bottom right hand corner, in the red trunks, it's Maru. And in the top left, from Team Liquid, it's Clem. Oh man, that last game was just such good TVT. And when you're looking at the plays that really made that game, the Raven opening from Clem, getting so many worker kills early, just all the decision making, the push that dislodged the 3rd base. Maru Maru seems to have this ability in games that he plays where he knows when to be aggressive. But hey, it looks like Clem doesn't want to give him that chance because that's a 2nd barracks that is halfway across the map. That's going to be additional Reapers that are on the way for Clem. And we're getting a little bit cheeky here. Actually, it might be Marines even. There's only 1 gas across the map for Clem. So he's not going to be able to produce 2 Reapers at a time. We'll see. But as I was saying, Maru has this ability to just know when to take fights. He comes in and he recognizes there's an opening, and Maru just knows exactly how much he can get done with what he has. And there is no doubt in his mind that he has enough, as it does look like the timing actually does line up here for Clem. Why did I doubt him? A 2nd Reaper is on the way, so apparently you can do this with 1 gas, which is actually really interesting. I assume that Clem didn't actually cut workers, because you see there the same workers as Maru. So it's a regular timing on the 1st barracks into the gas. 2nd barracks comes down when he has 150 minerals. Actually means that Clem has enough to go for 2 Reapers at a time while still only on 1 gas, which is really interesting. We'll see how much damage this does get done. Maru, are you ready? Because there's going to be a bit more aggression than perhaps you're ready for. As immediately stepping forward, gets a few shots off onto the 1st SCV, but Clem looking to see if he can focus down that 1st Reaper before it even does too much. Maru just pulls off the CC. Says, I'm not even going to try and hold that, but here comes Clem going straight on into the main base. SCVs have to be pulled. 1 Reaper is extremely low, but a Hellion is on the way, and once that is onto the map, it should be a lot easier for Maru to push this back. But still, a lot of damage done. Clem able to delay the CC a good chunk of time, and that means that his command center will be up. A cancel? No. The CC wasn't that far on its way, but still, that feels like that's so bad for Maru, because now he's rebuilding his CC on the high ground. And Clem is going to have his done very shortly. That is... I mean, it might be catastrophic here for Maru, I'm not sure. He does have the advantage of, you know, again, he has the tech advantage over his opponent. That's kind of been the story of these last 2 games, is Maru has been quicker into his tech units and his upgrades. But still, his economy is going to be so much further behind. We'll see what he can do from this position, but Clem already has that second CC up, is working on a starport, or a starport, so he's not going to be terribly far behind in that unit production. And along with the third gas as well, it does mean that Clem will have access to Ravens sooner than his opponent. But Maru's going for a medevac, so it's going to be, I mean, I'd imagine an early drop here from Maru. This is already an interesting game, to say the least, as you have a kind of just dead period. Both these players not really knowing what's going on across the map. Neither of them having any vision on their opponent. And neither of them really... I mean, Maru here is going to go for this push, and we'll see what it's able to do. It is a tank and some Marines, so this could be a fairly deadly push. Clem doesn't quite know if it's coming. His Marines are moving down. This tank can be sieged on the low ground. Here we go. Maru decides it's time to try and get some damage done of his own. And what does Clem have to defend? There's a Raven on the way, but it's not done yet. A tank as well for Clem is in production. But again, it's still not done yet. Clem, he's just going to push to the edge and try and see how much damage he can get done. Cyclone pulls a little bit too far back. That lock-on was actually really well done. Here we go. Siege tank still getting damage done, but finally it looks like Clem should be able to push this back. Kills off the tank. And I mean, with the worker advantage that Clem already has, holding that just feels like such an advantage for the French Terran here. As Bunker looking to go down, but the refocus onto the SCV is a great pull. And Clem right now just holding all of the cards in these early game skirmishes. Just feels like he has such an advantage. As here we go. Maru looking to go straight on into the main mineral line. It's Marines and a Hellion. Just drops down 2. Decides he can't really go for it. He's going to see if he can just kind of poke around. But you already have Stim on the way for Clem. I mean, tank production has started. Vikings are on the way. Feels like a lot of cards in the hands of our Team Liquid Terran. Maru is going to double back with this medevac, and it doesn't look like Clem was expecting it. We'll see how quick the SCV pull is. Not a reaction quite yet. 2 SCVs already going down, a third being focused, and Maru is just looking for damage here. Gets 5 SCVs, and that's a decent trade. It puts the worker count back to even for Maru, which is, I mean, really massive in this situation where he needed to get damage done at some point. Because if he hadn't, it would have just been a constant lead for Clem. But now Maru will have a faster third CC, has evened out the workers, but doesn't have a Stim on the way. He's going to be very late with that. Instead, is actually prioritizing 1-1. And this is something, I've talked about this before, but Maru does this. And it's very interesting where when Maru's in a situation where he knows that he might have a slight disadvantage, or at least damage has been done to him early, and he's trying to kind of, you know, recuperate a little bit, he actually prioritizes his 1-1 bio upgrades over Stim Pack, which I don't really see any other Terrans do, but it's worked out for him many times, and it's just such an interesting choice. But with that being said, it's probably not going to be enough to overcome the army advantage that Clem has right now. The third CCs are going down at the same time. Clem is sitting at, I mean, a 20 supply lead almost, with Stim already done, with combat shields on the way, and his 1-1 not even that far behind Maru's. I mean, it just feels like right now Clem completely in the driver's seat for this game. And he's going to try and push across the map. Does also have a Raven with this push. There are 3 on the side of Maru, which he's managed to produce in the time that he's had between his initial push and Clem cleaning it up. But even then, that's only 3 interference matrices. Maybe, actually, might have 5 with the amount of energy on those Ravens. The sensor towers are going down. Armory's quickly on the way to follow up the 1-1, so both these players going to be very quickly getting into their 2-2 upgrades. And it looks like both of them just pretty happy here to sit back and bring this into the mid-game. You have additional racks going down for Clem, and the real next kind of interesting point to see is when the 4th CC goes down, because it's going to be after 2-2. Is usually that will be a priority for these Terrans, as they're looking to kind of win these early games, or these mid-game skirmishes, and especially for Clem, who, I mean, at this point should probably know that he is in at least a decent position comparatively to Maru. Of course, it's not a massive lead, but it is just a slight edge for him. He's going to look to try and win these mid-game skirmishes, so he's going to get that 2-2. Has a second factory on the way as well as his additional barracks. It's going to be a very strong army from Clem. Maru is just producing non-stop Vikings. Is actually already, has 2 on the map, is going to have a 3rd and 4th joining in. So he is going to have that threat in the air, whereas Clem is actually focusing on medevacs to be maybe a bit proactive across the map, to be able to have those drops as an option in the case that he does get into kind of a stalemate, where it's tank line versus tank line. But both players start their 2-2, +1 on their tanks is on the way for their vehicle weapons, and the 4th bases are roughly around the same time. Maru, again, just slightly faster with getting into the more economy, where he's just prioritizing those 4th CCs. Even then, here we go. It's a double drop on into the main. Clem is responding. Is he? Where are Clem's units, actually? None of them are here to respond. Maru stims some into the 3rd base just to be annoying. He's going to focus down these add-ons. Make sure that Clem has no way to produce additional Vikings. Kind of stunts the Marine production as well. That's a pretty big move. He's even going to try and focus down the barracks, but just pulls out as the first tank shot comes through. And it's a nice move, but it's still Clem with a 30 supply lead, is what you got to look at. And it's mostly in that army, which is going to be the big danger of those Marines unable to catch up to the medevac. But it's double tank production for Clem. It's going to be 8 Marines at a time, with all the upgrades coming through at a similar pace for him. It's not going to be like last game where he was behind in that. His 2-2 is going to be at the same time as Maru's. There's not going to be that window where Maru does trade better with his Marines. It's just not going to really be there. And now Clem, he's approaching maxed out. He's still he's still 20 supply ahead of Maru. And I wouldn't be surprised if Clem looks for a push here. Both players add on 2 additional starports. Going to be getting into, at least more of an air army to be able to help, help support these tanks, of course. And Maru just tracking Clem's army. Sensor tower doing so much work to kind of keep pages on what's happening, but you already see Clem start up the +2 tank upgrades, the +2 vehicle weapons, and I think he just recognized, listen, I missed this in the last game, and it was so instrumental to Maru being able to break my hold and my contain. So immediately starts on it. Is going to have that upgrade ahead of Maru, who's already started a 5th and 6th CC. But Clem, he actually he sees Maru putting down 2 extra CCs, and I can do you one better. Has 4 on the way. And this is going, this is going straight to the late game. You have Corvid Reactor on the way for both players. +2. Oh, Clem. Oh, Maru sees it. Oh no, this could be massive. I don't know if Clem noticed. He didn't have it. It didn't look like he had his screen. Oh, Maru's so ready for this. This could be so huge. Clem, he's still going for it. No, the interference matrix. All the Vikings are here. It's all of Clem's army. It all goes down. GG. That is such a painful way to have to tap out of game number 2. But Maru with the Marine Scout.